Okay, so it's that time of year again. I redraw a mermaid character in a better and more interesting way. There's this annual challenge similar to Inktober called Mermay. It was created by Disney animator Tom Bancroft and has been going on for quite a number of years. Rather than do a piece a day, I like to focus in on one good piece and sort of take stock of my artistic progress. I've been doing this since like 2021, I think, maybe 22. You'll see at the end. Well, who cares how long it's been taken? This piece is where I'm at least when it comes to digital artwork skills. So I guess I'll break down the drawing before I get into the Q&A. So, not much has changed in my initial approach. I start with iterative sketches on a mid-tone gray background. If you use a pure white, the colors, if you're doing a color piece, just won't look right to your eyes because the white will be blasting your corneas and make your color selection different. One thing I'm trying in this piece specifically is not using black lines. Since this is a more aquatic piece, I tried using more of a dark blue color for the lines. I think that helps push it more to what I wanted in the end. So just iterative sketch after iterative sketch, altering the canvas when necessary, and I've come up with a pose. I like this idea of like mermaids being this secluded race of warrior women that are guarding their territories. I think that's a fun twist on the myth. So I went with a more action-oriented piece. This mermaid is about to throw her trident at the viewer, so this piece also lets me practice with one of my longtime nemesis, foreshortening. As for colors, I'm trying to use more saturation in my pieces moving forward. I used to gravitate more toward like muddier, more muted colors, but I think using brighter colors as an initial base for the flats is better. I also cut out me putting in the flat colors in this piece because that part's kind of boring to watch. So as per usual, I set my shadow layer to be a clipping layer and set the mode to multiply. I do 2 layers of it initially, and the same sort of process with the highlights, which are set to overlay. I use the exact same color or a color very near to it to create the shadows, which creates softer shadows on what you're shading and more dramatic temperature-based shadows on top of that in the other layer. I think it looks pretty cool. I only recently started doing this. Same with highlights, but I add a 3rd layer to each. One that's white highlights for the highlights. It's more of like a style kind of thing, just using those pure white highlights. I do set it to overlay and lower it a little bit so it's not so harsh, because I do another layer on top of the entire piece, on top of the line work, that's pure white style. And then I do add an ambient occlusion layer that I use the darkest color in my piece with a soft round brush to create the darkest shadows. You know, places where there's no light, like under the breast. Of course, you need some variance in layer opacity for this to look good. And I'd even recommend hitting the piece with a low opacity soft eraser in some spots to make the lighting look more realistic and softer in some spots and harsher in others. I also add a clipping layer on top of the line layer, of which I lower the opacity and slightly erase in the areas where the light is hitting the hardest, like say at the top of the head, and set the layer mode, the one that's clipping that, to vivid light. I then take a soft round low opacity brush and try to match the key light source's color, the key light source in this piece being the blood moon behind her, and just make the lines pop more, you know. Certain shadows and highlights are hit with the blend tool and another layer of cast shadow is added. Sometimes I'll add additional highlights on a soft light layer, but I'm not sure if that's just overkill, maybe just a style thing, or completely unnecessary. I don't know. I kind of been doing it in a lot of my pieces. Not all of them, though. Depends on the scene. There was also the water, which was a pain to make. It really looked like she's submerged in it. Background, foreground layers. Just watch the time lapse. I figured it out eventually. Obviously, not really a great piece at the end, just where I'm at. There's always room for infinite improvement. I'll show you the progression of the older pieces at the end of the video, but I have to jump to the next segment of this video. Okay, now onto the Q&A section of this video, so it doesn't get boring. But before we do, I would think the strat nowadays is tell you to like, comment, subscribe, and hype if you're on mobile in the middle of the video. So go ahead and do that. Do it now. Alright, questions. Yggdrasil2 says, what were your inspiration for starting your webcomic? I feel like I got this question last time, but I'm not sure if you mean what made me want to make a webcomic or what was my biggest influence. The answer to the latter is probably Berserk. Around the time I read Berserk for the first time, I was just blown away at how intricately crafted and how it ascended from comic book to high art, and I thought I could take a swing at it. Obviously, my art is nowhere near as good as Miura-sensei, nor do I think I'm some great writer, but I try, you know? As for what made me want to make comics in in the first place. I mean, it was something that I kind of always wanted to do, digging through my old childhood sketchbooks. There's a bunch of comics I drew in them. But what really got me started was actually COVID. I had literally just graduated from college with a bachelor's in graphic design, struggled to get a job in that field, never did, so many years and so much money wasted for a useless piece of paper. Not to mention, shortly after COVID, AI gobbled up a huge share of that field, but I'm going off on a tangent now. You know, nothing to do, nowhere to go. Why not go for it? And I've been working on Doomsayer on and off ever since. And I'm working on not just one comic, I've shared some of the character designs from as well. 3 more that have yet to start being released. Yeah, I'd rather just shadow drop those. I gotta keep busy for my own sanity, you know? Keep my hands moving so my mind doesn't drift off into, like, negativity. Idle hands, devil's workshop, you know the phrase. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Art from the Moon says, your favorite marine animal. If you were turned into a merman, what tail, fins, body would you want? Shark, whale, Aquaman? I like turtles, but are they marine animals? I mean, they're like sea turtles, but they're also land turtles. Ninja turtles, too. I don't know. If turtles don't count anglerfish because they look badass, if I was a merman, I want big-ass lobster claws. Newports 100 asks a couple questions, so I'll go one by one. All right, 1. The comic you're making was the only story, or was it supposed to go different? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I just use a rough outline for plotting certain key events that need to occur to move characters through the narrative and hit those important development moments. But when I write, I sort of just let the characters guide me. All right, number 2. What was the hardest panel page to make? There's this one panel that I actually mentioned in the video going over my own art evolution. Minor spoiler, I guess. It's when Anna is speaking with the personless elders in the transdimensional space between Celestos and Yurvas. They're explaining index breakers to her, and they show the queen in heartwork form as an example. For some reason, that single panel took me like 3 days. No joke. There's also the very improved drawing of the Celestian castle as the establishment shot for that scene where all of the lords of Celestos and the ambassadors of the jokey and exciting territories are meeting. Anything with a ton of straight lines like that is frustrating. I have a very fluid style, I guess you could say, more like organic, I guess, maybe. I hate drawing architecture. Part of why I made this a fantasy, actually. A lot of outside scenes with trees and mountains and giant mushrooms. Oh, and there was this one in a more recent chapter when everyone finally gets the Aldermere Inn in Shamatar. The shot of everyone at the table took like a century. Weirdly enough, still not as long as the Queen Celeste in heartwork form projected into the void between dimensions. A whole lot of what I said is probably not going to make sense for people that haven't read Doomsayer, and I find that kind of funny. Next part. 3. Have you ever dabbled in animated comics? Yes, actually. There were a few really subpar animations of like 13-second meme videos from 20 years ago on YouTube I did. You can still see my crappy Richard, what's your favorite animal animation? Animation is fucking hard, dude. Like, some people think comics are hard. Nah, animators are like on another level. Nothing but the utmost respect for the people that work in that field, especially since a lot of those amazing artists are criminally underpaid. I can feel their love in every frame, even if it turns out like One Punch Man Season 3, you know? Those people tried, they just didn't have enough time. And number 4, any hot takes on modern comics / indie art? I hate webtoon formatting. Literally no page design at all. Speaking of webtoon, I hate that it's 90% gay romances and regression / bully revenge power fantasies that feel like they're being pumped out by AI and 10% good stuff. And some of that 10% are within those gay romances. There's just so much homogeny. Weirdly enough, on a site-by-site basis. Like, Comic Fury has a ton of furry comics. Like, guys, you're reading it wrong. It's Fury, not furry. Global Comics, while publishing stuff from the big companies, still have an oversaturation of superhero stories on the indie side of it. Tapas is Fujoshi land. Like, seriously, it's just gay boys, gay boys, gay boys. I also don't like that Webtoon and Tapas don't allow mature content in your comics, but that's just me and what I make unapologetically. And worst of all, I fucking hate when Americans make a comic read right to left and call it a manga. Dude, manga is literally just the Japanese word for comic. We used it here in the West to describe comics from Japan. They call Superman a manga over there. And which fucking direction does English read, retard? Like, I get when manga's translated, it's for the sake of preserving the artwork, but you're just trying to sneak your way into the manga section at your local Barnes & Noble, aren't you, Corey? I see you. I fucking hate that. Number 5. What do you think's overplayed and oversaturated in the comic and or any art community? I kind of just already answered that, didn't you? Next question. FoxBoxTrot9436, one of my regular commenters, says, I can't recall if you've done this one yet, but what is your favorite video game genre and what is your least favorite? That's a good one. I've been really more into JRPGs these days, but I always love a good, character action game, I guess they're called. Stuff like DMC, Bayonetta, God of War on the PS2, before it was hold up and push face buttons occasionally, back when it actually had gameplay. Does Yakuza count? Like those kinds of games. But I like most genres, RPGs, shooters, freaking visual novels. I play them all, except those crappy modern multiplayer-only Zoomer slap games like Minecraft, Fortnite, Rocket League, Marvel Rivals, that kind of trash. Monetization-based live service pube cloud-headed shit like that. Yes, it looks like pubes. You should stop it. Y'all gonna look back on this haircut like the man bun or the faux hawk or the mullet. Anyway, moving on to a fucking novel. Holy shit. Alright, here we go. Mike Guy 15 asks a lot, so let's go one by one. 1. What's your opinion on mainstream comics versus indie comics? Do you think each side has specific strengths and weaknesses? I much prefer indie comics. Mainstream comics are too safe and sanitized. Indie comics, much like the indie scene of every creative field, seem to be where fresh and new ideas come from. And I kind of hate superhero comics, so... Number 2. What are some lessons you've learned from illustrating your comic? What do you wish you had known before starting? Well, I think maybe I should hire some assistants so it isn't 3 months between chapters. Man, one thing I can note is that it is a lot of work, especially if you're doing it all yourself. Pacing yourself is good, but if you're like me and your pace is all over the place, that advice will fall on deaf ears. I just decided that I want to take my time and make the best comics possible. Yes, plural. I got 3 more in development phase, like I said. Yes, 3. You'll have to wait and see. Unless you're on a deadline, I'd say most people are fine with you taking your time and not rushing out an inferior product. So yes, take your time. That's my advice. Not great advice if you're trying to prove to a publisher you can hit deadlines. Advice that I think is more applicable to more independent creators, I think. Question 3. How important do you think strong writing is in comics? Some huge franchises are loved mainly because of cool characters, great fights, or amazing visuals, even when the writing is heavily criticized. Do you think good writing is always necessary, or can other elements carry a story? Of course, writing is just as important as art. There are 2 key elements in a comic: a visual storytelling medium. The art that makes up the visuals and the writing that makes up the storytelling. You should try to make both the best as possible. You're talking about the shonen tards, aren't you? Next question. Do you think it's truly possible to separate the art from the artist, especially when so much art is shaped by that artist's personal experiences, beliefs, and worldview? Oh, yeah, for sure. For instance, I love extreme metal. Just because I listen to fucking Goat Moon doesn't mean I'm gonna put on a fucking SS uniform, By the way, stay tuned for my reviewing every band on Antifa's sketchy bands list video. Have you guys seen that going around? Any of my metalheads? You seen that going around? I gotta make fun of it. If I showed you this painting right here, you'd say, hey, that's a pretty painting. Very technically well executed. Maybe I'll put it on my bathroom wall. Now, if I told you it was a Hitler, does that take away from the fact that it's a well-done painting? I don't think so. I feel like if you can't separate the art from artists, that's a you problem, But some people feel that way, that they can't separate them, and I say let them, as is their right, as is my right to disagree and be like, yeah, whatever, Alright, number 5. How was your day? Hopefully it was good. If it wasn't, here's a support emoji. His name is Paul. His family tragically died in a house fire, but he never gave up on his mission to make people smile. His arch nemesis is Barry, a jerk who wants everyone to stay miserable. Will you support Paul by staying happy and telling Barry to get lost? Well, thanks, Paul. Day was pretty shit, to be honest. My neck and back ache from hours of physical labor that can barely provide me with enough revenue to sustain myself. I am so tired. I go to work, I go home. There is no light and no hope on this earth. God is dead and we are alone. But, that's life. Fuck you, Barry. Next question. How far ahead do you usually plan your story before you start working on the actual comic pages? Okay, so I write the script. I kind of format it like a play script with certain notes about how to frame a scene or minor details I need to add for consistency and smaller elements for character development. Then I'll subdivide the chunks of the script into sections, better known as pages. Sometimes I'll note if a particular scene needs to be a double-page spread, so usually when I finish a script, I'll know because there's a cliffhanger at the end. Always leave them wanting more. Make it so that they're begging to know what happens next. Like I finished that one chapter about about to show the flashback to the Zakami Mines incident that's been referred a few times throughout Doomsayer since the beginning, and then I blue-balled the fuck out of my readers. That's how you do it. So after I mark up the script, I'll then do rough thumbnails with the word balloons and then lay out the entire comic roughly, including dialogue in Clip Studio Paint. Then I'll just draw the pages and post them. That's all there is to it. Number 7. How do you write your scripts? Do you write them in text first, thumbnail, everything, or a mix of both? Personally, I do, but I kind of just already answered that. Number 8. What's your stance on tools versus replacement debate? At what point does a tool do so much of the work that it feels like the creator isn't really making the thing anymore? If this is a reference to AI, well, I think someone asked me about AI again on another question. Maybe not. My opinion has actually changed, but actually for the worst, and I'm not going to go into further detail and hit that question, because in this business, we call it suspense. And if I'm mistaken and they didn't ask me about it, I do think I do want to do like one more video about AI. It'll probably be called something like AI is pure evil, or AI is the devil, or something like that. It's not, there's something about it that just disturbs me down to a spiritual level, especially nowadays. But we'll get into that at a later date, probably. All right, number 9. How far do you think fictional content can go, as long as it does not use the likeness or directly reference real people? Where do you personally draw the line between dark fiction, edgy fiction, and something that goes too far? Well, if you've read Doomsayer, you know it's a pretty dark series. One of my favorites of all time, Berserk, has some even darker scenes. I think most, if not all, art should be allowed, if it's art. Even that low lolly Shota trash, that chibi reviews core that makes me vomit. I mean, it's not real people. I guess it should be allowed. I mean, I don't like it, but, it's not real. But I think the perfect example of crossing that line is Shadman. If you guys don't know, Shadman was a Gooner artist that specialized in drawing lollies. Pretty disgusting, but whatever. You don't have to look at it. You can just block them. It's not like they're real people until he actually started drawing real children. And that's when the hero of free speech got canceled as fuck. And that's the line for me as well. That's fucking gross. I'm glad he's in jail. Maybe. I don't know. Is he still in jail? For assault, for some reason. Like, everybody thought, that's why he went to jail. I wonder whatever happened to him. Maybe I'll do a video about him someday. Break time. Paul, hit us with a fun fact. Yo, Paul here. Did you know the Incredible Hulk originally debuted as gray, but because of printing issues that made his color inconsistent and sometimes greenish, Marvel eventually changed him to green? Now green is his iconic default look. Crazy, right? Paul out. Yeah, actually, I did know that. You guys ever play Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction on PS2? Not only can you lack the gray skin in it, I think it's the best Hulk game ever made. You should really play it, especially if you like those prototype games. Same dev team, plays a lot alike. What's your opinion on reboots, continuations, and relaunches of legacy media? Do you think some franchises should eventually be allowed to end, or do you think it's fine for a series to keep going with the new creators after the original creator is gone? Yeah, personally, I think letting things end is for the best. One day when I finish Doomsayer, who knows, maybe it'll get huge. I wouldn't want anyone to continue or reboot it. I wouldn't mind fan works, that's fine. But official continuations, I don't like that. Let things end. Not to mention, a lot of times when old series that have been laying dormant for a long time get rebooted or continued, the magic's gone. Dragon Ball Super. Also, do you guys see Netflix is doing a new Ghostbusters cartoon? Why the fuck will they not let that franchise die? Who still actually gives a fuck about Ghostbusters and the Big 2-6? Gen Xers, let it go. It was a good movie, but it wasn't Citizen fucking Kane. I don't really like Ghostbusters that much. Number 12, have you heard of the YouTuber Webcomic Reliefs? He makes comic-related commentary content that feels somewhat similar to yours. Yes, actually, I have. I've actually watched a few of his videos, but I need to watch them with subtitles. Dude has a really thick accent. I don't know, Scandinavian, German, some kind of European. Other than that, it's pretty good stuff. Go check it out if you like my webcomic reviews and you're looking for something similar. I think he might be one of the 3 people to have reviewed Jack on this website other than myself. I know I am literally the only person on YouTube to have reviewed Moon Over June, though. Holy fuck, that one was bad. I think that one was worse than Bench Tales. At least Bench Tales only lasted 24 pages. And I realize every time I bring up webcomics I reviewed, I mention how god-awful Moon Over June was. Sorry, not sorry. Remember, I suffered for you, so don't hurt yourself for trying to read it yourself. okay? It was so fucking bad, and Summer Winters is the worst character in fiction I've ever come across. But yeah, Webcomic Relief, seems like a cool guy. Hey, maybe we could do a collab or something someday, who knows? Got a little bit of a short list of YouTubers I'd like to maybe collab someday. But, you know, who knows? Number 13. In your opinion, what definitively makes a piece of fiction good? What qualities would a 10 out of 10 story need to have by your personal standards? Do you have any examples of stories you consider masterpieces? Well, that really depends on who you ask or what you're looking for. Art is subjective. We all know that. Some people say Gachi Akuda has the best art in shonen manga right now, and I can't stand looking at it. Shit, One Piece. I think Oda is a terrible artist. I hate his art. But some people think he's a god. Sometimes I want to read some trash too, to be honest. Like art that is not deemed quote-unquote good by a general consensus. Like, I can't stop watching Rent-A-Girlfriend, even though that's a dumpster fire. It's a terrible show. Music unironically goes hard as fuck in that show, by the way. Go listen to the soundtrack. I don't think anything can truly be defined as good or bad. You like what you like. You don't like what you don't like. Some guys are boobs men. Some guys, like myself, are ass men. Does preferring one delegitimize the other? No. That's just too much of a philosophical question to get into. Number 14. Do you think using ghostwriters is inherently exploitative? History has shown that many major comic creators, like Bill Finger, were uncredited for decades. Do you think ghostwriting can be ethical if handled properly, or is it always questionable? Oh, I don't know. I mean, if they get paid for their work, who cares? Like, for the record, I have never and never will use a ghostwriter. Maybe they don't want recognition. Some people are more private than others. I don't know. We've got a bit of another philosophical one that'd take too long to analyze. Next question. 15. Break time again. Paul, give us another fun fact. Did you know? Wait a minute. You're not Paul. Get out of here, Barry.
It was me, Barry.
16. Who is your favorite Powerpuff Girl? Buttercup. Next question. 17. Number 17. Marvel or DC? Or do you like both equally? Image. 18. What is something you wish more comic writers took seriously? Character development, plot structure, pacing, themes, consistency, or something else? So this is something a lot of superhero, fantasy, and sci-fi writers do that annoys me, and that's exposition over character development. Now, obviously, the exposition needs to be exposited at some point, but if I'm like 3 chapters deep and I still have no idea what kind of people the main cast are like, then you've lost me. This is something I see a bit more in the webcomics world, and I have complained about it in the past on the channel, but characters come first. Sure, you built a cool world with lots of history or an awesome power system, but why should I give a shit if the characters I'm along for the ride with are brick walls? I feel like exposition shouldn't be as prioritized as much as character development. Alright, who do you think is a great case study of how to write a fantastic story, whether that's a specific writer, comic, manga, show, or a movie? Oh, dude, Berserk. Come on. You new to my channel, bro? 20. Is there a specific era of comics, animation, internet culture, or entertainment you feel nostalgic for? Early 2000s, when everything felt new and exciting, and honestly more hopeful. That Frutiger Arrow era. Everything was so gloom and doom these days. We had exciting emerging technologies that were going to enhance our lives back then. Now anytime a new tech product is revealed, everyone's response is, oh boy, more man-made horrors beyond comprehension. Take me back to when Newgrounds was popping and the internet was fun. Alright, thank you for that dissertation, Mike guy. I appreciate it. Moving on. Sailor Route asks, what's your upcoming schedule for reviews? So, I've kind of reverted back to that post it when it's done style. I know I've been posting on a schedule for a while, and I know some of you like that, but I either can't keep up sometimes, or I get an idea that needs better timing, like the video on Jeremy Ham Sandwich, the Quarter Pounder Creeper. Go watch that one. It pretty much sums up that June the King video in like 2.5 minutes. Also, ever since I switched to a schedule, my videos performed worse. I don't know, sometimes videos just shit the bed. YouTube's a fucking slot machine. But I know my channel was doing better before I scheduled uploads. So I'm going to try for a video a week, or at least every 2 weeks minimum. But the answer is when it's done. Because that just kind of works out better for me. You guys tell me in the comments, like, do you prefer scheduled or, like, when it's done? Because if I post it when it's done, I might actually be able to upload more frequently. That's just how it is. Alright, Kevin Raggle says, what do you think is currently the most overused Story trope, and what is a story trope you wish you could see more? Well, I admittedly don't read too many Western comics, but in the manga world, isekai, I'm sick of it. And no, not the concept of being transported to another world. That's the weird thing. It's the brick wall protagonist that's only there for the readers to project themselves onto, and the generic, we need to stop the demon lord, good thing I have this unique skill and a harem of one-note female companions to help, you know? That plot structure, it's so boring. It's so fucking boring. Wait, hold on. Where's the heel versus babyface beam?
Cause we're boring! We're so fucking boring!
As for a trope I like, well, there's two that I love. Revenge and redemption. I feel like both of these could be used more, but that's just what I like. I fucking love revenge. In case any of you haven't checked out Doomsayer, it is primarily a revenge story. Again, just what I like. You know, I also like to draw female characters with breasts large enough to have a gravitational pull. Some people don't like that, and those people are surprisingly more so men more often than not. It's usually men that complain about that. Weird. Art is subjective, so just like what you like, you know? And don't like what you don't like. You know, if you don't like something, just don't fucking read it. If you like something, just read it and don't give a fuck what other people think. Alright, next up, John Williams, WL9PX says, comics you think that best use the medium to tell its story, i.e. sort with too many nuances that then can only be done in comic rather than a film? That question's worded a little bit strangely, but I think you're asking which comics I think work best as a comic and no other adaptations. Well, the cop-out is obviously Berserk. If you guys have been on my channel for a while, you should know it's my favorite. It's a very picturesque manga that is borderline unadaptable, and I think works the best in comic form. I also really like Tatsuki Fujimoto's more cinematic approach to comics. I mean, you guys all know Chainsaw Man, but you should really read Fire Punch. It'll filter the tourists, too. You guys ever read The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller? That's a good one. You can read that one on its own. You don't really need a century of context like most of the big two. Weirdly enough, a Gooner webcomic I reviewed in my last Comic Fury random comics video, or whatever I would call that series, called The Gloaming, really uses the visual as well. I like the ones that have more emphasis on visuals than scripts. That one's pretty freaky, so be an adult to be prepared if you check it out. But also, Junji Ito also comes to mind, although you really read those for the sick artwork, not any deeper, meaningful stories. His writing is a bit strange. I may revisit his work since that video that I did a long time ago is old and terrible, and it's been a few more of his older works localized and re-released in the West since I made that shitty video. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. JBS201 says, how did you get into art? I mean, pretty much the same way everyone else does. You start doodling as a kid and then you either grow out of it or stick with it. Same with any kind of skill or hobby. You can play sports as a kid, but not everyone continues to strive to be a professional athlete. You know, it's about like finding your thing. Sometimes you don't find it till later in life. Sometimes you're born with a technical drawing pen in your hand, you know? Must you ask, if you could work with any artist, franchise, or company for your art, who would you pick and why? I don't know, it might be cool to do some creature designs for From Software. Although, I'd have to complain to the devs about their shitty combat design. Ooh, I just triggered Soul Slop lovers. I only played the first Dark Souls, it was enough. Or maybe Atlas designed some new demons for the next SMT? I don't know. To be honest, I'd rather just work on my own original IPs like Doomsayer and the few comics I got brewing down the line. You know? I'm not really into like working for somebody else's franchise. I want to make my own things. Okay, and last up, we got longtime viewer and friend of the channel, JT Music Box, coming in at the end here with a few. JT says, you sometimes talk about growing as an artist. Are there any specific aspects you are working to improve or anything specific you are doing to evolve? What does your growth process look like? Well, that's hard to explain. Just keep doing the thing and eventually you'll get better at doing the thing. I mean, sometimes I try to focus in on certain aspects like, let me do this piece to improve foreshortening, or this one to work on my lighting, or this one to try something I don't normally do, or maybe this one to try a different approach to things. That kind of thing helps. There's also looking at other artists' work and trying to analyze how they made their pieces, or even going so far as to watch their time-lapses or breakdowns if they offer them. And he's got a few more. Who's your biggest influence? Well, I'll name a few. These are just some of my favorite artists. Salvador Dali, Junji Ito, Kentaro Miura, Maxime Takardi, Mirai Hikari Art, Shexio, Robert Crumb, Mort Drucker, Guiaz, 1000, and Peter Draws, more so as YouTuber influences. Amanda Durko, God Machine, Kim Jong-gi, Tom McFarlane, and of course Jazza. You guys know Jazza, right? He's Jazza's brother's brother. Do you have any pets? No pets. I think I answered this one before, but I'll answer again. I had some pet fish as a kid. Aquariums are a colossal pain. But my sister actually got a dog about a year ago now, so I guess I'm a dog uncle. I love him like my own flesh and blood. They're actually not sure what breed he is. They think he might be a Brussels Griffon or maybe mixed with a terrier. He kind of looks like the dog on screen. So, no pets of my own, but pets in the family. And last but not least, if two trains are on the same track at a distance of 100 miles apart heading towards one another, each at a speed of 50 miles per hour, a fly starting out at the front of the one train flies towards the other at a speed of 75 miles per hour. Upon reaching the other train, the fly turns around and continues toward the first train. How many kilometers does the fly travel before getting squashed in the collision of the two trains? Bro, I'm not doing math. Get the fuck out of here. Also, kilometers? What country is this? Fuck off. Anyway, that's all the questions. Thank you all for asking them. If you had any questions that weren't answered, don't worry. We do 2 a year. We do the mid-year one with the MerMay Redraw, and we do one at the end of the year that's the sort of recap or reflection. So, thank you all for sending them in, and let's wrap up this mermaid piece here. Alright, so this is the final piece. Looks okay to me. I can point out a million mistakes already, but that's just what it's like being an artist. In a year from now, I'm going to call this trash, but here's the little slideshow showing you the mermaid drawing progression. I only have back up to like 2023, so I don't know. I definitely did it the year before for sure, though. I don't know if I made a video. Anyway, I clearly have gotten better, but it also feels like progress is slowed. There's always a level cap you need a prestige pass, and that can only come with time and effort. So don't feel discouraged in your art journey. Everyone moves at their own pace. Out of all the mermaids I've drawn so far, this is by far my favorite. Will next year stack up? No idea. For now, thank you so very much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you did, I'd appreciate if you like, comment, subscribe, or hype. All that good YouTuber stuff. If you're old enough, check out my comic Doomsayer. Stay tuned for the other comics I'm working on. If you want to submit your comic for review on the channel, specifically a comic made by you, send it to deviantartsubmissions@gmail.com, or if you want, send any fan art like this piece on screen. Shout out to Mecha Mudskipper over on the Discord. You know, fan art, hate mail, content suggestions, cosplays, or girlfriend applications, send it to deviantartsubmissions@gmail.com. Don't actually send girlfriend applications. That's a joke. Would be funny to read those though. Anyway, check out the Discord community, link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.